The I-20 is the Certificate of Eligibility for Non-Immigration Student Status. This is an official immigration document created for you by Santa Clara University. Your I-20 should be kept in a secure location. It should never be shared with anyone except for official immigration purposes, starting employment, or applying for government programs like your California ID or driver's license. Our I-20 document walkthrough will explain how to read your I-20 and answer some common questions. I-20 Page 1. SEVIS ID. This is a unique number assigned exclusively to you. Your SEVIS ID will stay the same for the entire time that you are in F1 or F2 status in the United States. If you're a new student coming to the United States in F1 or F2 status for the first time, you will need your SEVIS ID to pay your SEVIS fee and apply for your F1 or F2 visa stamp. As a continuing student, we will occasionally ask for your SEVIS ID number to verify information. No one other than your school or U.S. government agencies should ask for your SEVIS ID number. You can memorize it if you want, but it's not required. Class of admission. F1. This shows that you should be admitted or are in the U.S. as an F1 student. If it shows F2, this shows that you are the dependent family member of a person in F1 status. Your I-20 will look a little different than an F1 I-20, as it contains not only your information, but your family member's F1 information as well. Surname/primary name, also called family name or last name. We are required to use the name standardization of the machine-readable line of your passport when creating an I-20 in the SEVIS immigration system. You should enter your name as it appears here for all official and U.S. government processes. So, for example, paying your SEVIS fee payment, your visa application, submitting a driver's license application, social security number application, or if you open a U.S. bank account. If you have questions about the way your name appears or have changed your name on your passport, please contact our office. Given name, also called first name. Once again, we are required to use the name standardization of the machine-readable line of your passport when creating an I-20 in the SEVIS immigration system. And you should always enter your name as it appears here for all official and U.S. government processes. Again, if you have questions about the way your name appears or have changed your name on your passport, please contact our office. Preferred name. This field is used for students that have a legally recognized name order that is different than the name order on the machine-readable line of their passport. This can only be updated under certain circumstances. If you have questions about the way your name appears or have changed your name on your passport, please contact our office. Passport name. This field is used for students that have a legally recognized name order that is different than the name order on the machine-readable line of their passport. This can only be updated in certain circumstances. If you have questions about the way your name appears or have changed your name on your passport, please contact our office. Country of birth. This is based on your passport and is self-reported. It should be the country where you were born. Country of citizenship. This is based on the passport you provided at the time of your first SCU I-20 request. It should represent the country in which you have citizenship, not necessarily the country in which you reside or the country in which you were born. Date of birth. This should match the date of birth on your passport. The standard date format in the U.S. is month, date, year. However, there are many countries, such as India and the United Kingdom, who use the day, month, year format. This is perfectly fine. Admission number. For new students coming to the United States in F1 status for the first time, this should be blank. For continuing students being issued new I-20s, this is very frequently blank. This occasionally is automatically populated based on your I-94 entry information. If your I-20 shows an admission number, you do not need an updated I-20 if the admission number changes. Form issue reason. There are 5 reasons why an I-20 is issued. An initial I-20 for those who are just coming to the United States in F1 status. Change of status for those who change from another immigration status to F1 status. So for example, if you were to change from L2 status to F1 status. Transfer in for students who were attending another school and then subsequently transferred into Santa Clara. Continued studies for students who have changed degree levels, and for general updates such as name changes. Legacy name. This is blank for most current students and would only be included for students who were issued their current F1 SEVIS immigration record prior to the year 2015. School Information section. This section includes general information about our school, including our school code and the name of the advisor who created the I-20. Program of Study sections. This section includes general information about your program of study, including the level of your degree and when classes start. Major. The information that is printed under Major on the I-20 is known as a SIP code. The classification of instructional programs, or CIP code, or SIP code, is a U.S. government designation used to classify and describe a wide variety of degrees and majors across U.S. universities. The appropriate SIP code for your major was assigned by our university based on the content of your classes. The SIP code is not exactly the same as your major or degree, but it is directly related. For example, all MSIS students have the same SIP code on their I-20, 11.0103, Information Technology. When you finish your degree, your diploma will say Master of Science in Information Systems. All CSE students have the same SIP code on their I-20, 14.0901, Computer Engineering General. When you finish your degree, your diploma will say Master of Science in Computer Science and Engineering. Earliest admission date. New students or continuing students entering the U.S. in F1 status for the first time are eligible to enter the United States up to 30 days before their program start date. The program start date is either the start of classes or International Student Welcome, whichever is earliest. We strongly recommend that students arrive early to allow themselves time to adjust before classes begin. Program end date. Our university's best practice is to issue the I-20 with a program length that is 1 year longer than the minimum length of study for the academic program. For example, if you are enrolled in a program that requires a minimum of 12 quarters of full-time enrollment to complete the minimum number of units for your degree, we would issue your I-20 for 5 years, rather than 4 years. We do this to ensure that international students have sufficient time to meet their academic goals while also making normal progress within their degree program. If you complete your academic program in less time than is listed on your I-20, we will shorten the program end date on your immigration record when you complete your degree. If your program end date is nearing, and you need additional time to complete your degree, you will need to request a program extension as soon as possible. Estimated average costs. This shows the minimum estimated expenses for 1 full academic year. These are published and managed by SCU Financial Aid and cannot be modified or edited. Students' funding. This figure is based on the funding documents you provided to our office at the time of your initial I-20 request. It generally does not change while you're a student at SCU. Occasionally, We will round or even numbers for consistency or clarity. For example, if a student showed $76,593 in funding, we might just list 76,000. Or, if a student showed substantially more funding than is required, we might list a lower number. Remarks. For new students coming to the U.S. in F1 status for the first time or applying for a change of status, this should list your mandatory ISW date. For continuing students being issued new I-20s, this is frequently blank. This occasionally is populated with notes, such as in the case of students studying abroad or updating CPT employment authorization. If your I-20 shows a remark, you do not need an updated I-20 if the note is no longer relevant. For example, after you attend ISW, it is okay to still have an I-20 that says the date that you will attend ISW on it. School Attestation. This section should be signed by an ISS team member in blue ink. Student Attestation, signature, and date. Each time you get a new I-20, you should sign and date the I-20 in blue ink immediately. Guardian Attestation. This section should not be completed for most students. This should only be completed by a parent or guardian if you are less than 18 years old. I-20, page 2. Employment Authorizations. For new students coming to the U.S. in F1 status for the first time or applying for a change of status, this should be blank. You are not authorized to work off campus. For continuing students being issued I-20s for CPT, OPT, STEM OPT, and CAP-GAP, this section should include information about your employment authorization and may include information about your employer. CPT. Your I-20 is the document that proves you're allowed to work, and therefore must show your current employer name. If your I-20 shows CPT employment, you do not need an updated I-20 after the employment authorization ends. OPT, STEM OPT, and CAP-GAP. Your EAD card is the document that proves you're allowed to work, and therefore your I-20 is not required to show your current employer. If your I-20 shows OPT, STEM OPT, or CAP-GAP employment, you do not need an updated I-20 after the employment or immigration authorization ends. Change of status, or CAP-GAP. This section should be blank for all students that are not currently relying on the CAP-GAP benefit for work authorization. For more information, see our Life After F1 website. Authorized Reduced Course Load. This section is blank unless you have been authorized to take a reduced course load. If your I-20 shows reduced course load authorization, you do not need an updated I-20 after the authorization ends. Current session dates. Each term, the ISS team is required to confirm that all current F1 students are enrolled in a full course load of classes. This process is called registration. This section of the I-20 shows the most recent registration event that the ISS team has recorded in your SEVIS record. Travel endorsement, often called a travel signature. This section should be completed by an ISS advisor at the time your I-20 is created. Signatures are valid for 1 year for current students and for 6 months for alumni on OPT or STEM OPT. You will need a valid travel signature to get back into the United States after you've traveled abroad. I-20, page 3. Instructions page. The fine print. This entire page contains important legal information and agreements. This is what you're agreeing to when you sign page 1. Every student should read it over the first time they get their I-20.